So, folks, we are joined by John Pabon today. And John Pabon is a globally recognized sustainability expert with over 2 decades of experience in driving practical impact across businesses and organizations worldwide. Formerly, he was with the United Nations and McKinsey. And John has traveled extensively, uncovering the realities of sustainability implementation and combating greenwashing. As the author of Sustainability for the Rest of Us and The Great Greenwashing, John is dedicated to empowering individuals and businesses with actionable strategies to make a genuine difference in the fight for a sustainable future. And as we prepare to delve into our conversation on the topic at hand, unveiling sustainability, exposing greenwashing, and practical strategies with John Pabon, here's an exciting twist. Let us tickle his brain first before we get into the conversation. So, John, get ready for a rapid fire round of random words. I'll mention a few, and I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. If you're ready, let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right. So, here comes the first word: curiosity,
Learning,
invention,
progress,
future,
opportunity,
book,
sales.
movie,
Oh gosh, Civil War. That's what's on my mind right now. That movie coming out soon.
and then aliens,
Oh, possibility,
universe,
wide.
leadership.
This is awful. Me, I came to mind. Maybe because of your
Awesome.
intro you just gave.
Awesome. And then role model.
Anybody who's making a difference.
Awesome. And here comes the last one: success.
Such an individual, personal thing. So success is in the eye of the beholder.
Wow. So intriguing. And John, thank you so much for participating in the first rapid fire round so sportively. We really appreciate it. And before I welcome you to the show formally, let me welcome the audience. So, folks, you have tuned into the Guiding Voice podcast series where we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place through valuable discussions that add value not only to your life, but also to your career. And thank you so much for tuning in. John, hearty welcome to TGV, the Guiding Voice. How are you doing today?
I'm amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure to have you, John. And let's get the ball rolling. We'll begin with your success mantra first. So please talk to us about the top 3 things that have contributed to your success so far.
I think for me, and given my background, one of the things that I learned early on was the importance of being able to synthesize information. So I'm kind of a trained generalist. I have a specialty in sustainability, of course, but I'm able to take a lot of information and really digest it and be able to spit it out somewhat coherently. And I think that's what makes a good consultant. My second is around curiosity. So, certainly going around the world, learning about things that maybe others might not be so interested in has definitely helped me out. And I think the third part that's really helped me throughout my career is just openness and the ability to not necessarily see opportunity, but not be so held to this is the way it has to be or this is the career path I have to be on. Just sort of seeing where things take me, and that's worked out quite well.
Great, amazing. And your global journey in sustainability is truly remarkable, John. So could you share a pivotal moment or experience that shaped your passion and commitment to this cause?
I don't know why I care so much about being an altruist and caring about things. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe my therapist can figure it out, but I certainly don't know. But I got into sustainability kind of by accident. So that's a funny story. I mean, I started at the UN, and even with McKinsey and AC Nielsen, I always worked with public sector clients, so always in the public good. But back when I started in sustainability, it wasn't even called that. I think we called it philanthropy or charity. But after all of that work I had done in the public sector, I decided to go and move to Shanghai, which is an extremely commercial city. And so I had to figure out a way to use all of that public sector knowledge in a commercial city. And that was what happened and how I fell into sustainability, which for me is kind of the marriage of doing public good, but my part of the sustainability universe working with corporations. So it mixed the two quite well.
Yeah, so that's a great cause to work on, and it is high time that people have to start realizing the importance of sustainability. And I'm glad I could meet one of the eco warriors, if I may call it, right? So, like you.
Oh,
Great.
thanks. And I think people are, which is a good thing. So it's
Yeah,
happening more and more.
right, right, right. And John, having worked extensively across different continents and with organizations like the United Nations and McKinsey, so what key lessons have you learned about implementing practical sustainability strategies in diverse cultural and business contexts?
So there's a massive difference between how sustainability is viewed and executed in, let's call it the West, so the United States, Europe, versus how it's done in more of the developing world, so economies across Asia as well as the subcontinent. So in the Western world, it's very much sustainability as an academic conversation, lots of panels, lots of conferences and discussions, which is great. But for those of us who are working more in and across Asia and especially the developing world, we have to roll up our sleeves and actually get dirty. We have to actually do work. We have to be in factories. We have to be on plantations and fields and actually see things firsthand versus being a few steps removed and talking about it on a panel. So they're two very different approaches, and I think because of that, the work that gets done and the approach towards what we call a theory of change, how everything is going to work and how we're actually going to build a sustainable future, it's very different between the two. And even within Asia, we're talking about how many markets are in Asia? 40 plus, and each of those markets is extremely unique. So it's very diverse when it comes to how we approach it in Asia versus more of the established model we see in the US or the EU.
Yeah, got it.
I like the Asian version better. I like to get my hands dirty.
Okay, now your book Sustainability for the Rest of Us, right? It emphasizes a no nonsense approach to saving the planet. So, can you walk us through the core principles of your 5 point plan and how individuals and businesses can adapt these principles effectively?
Absolutely. And this book came out, it would have been 2020, so just as the pandemic was getting going.
Mhm.
And I thought there wasn't really anything available for normal people, everybody, to figure out, okay, what does this all mean? And what am I supposed to do about it? Because it seems like it's a very big problem with no solutions, but there's certainly lots of solutions. So the first thing I recommend people do in my 5 point plan is to get a strong understanding of what in the world we're even talking about. What is sustainability? What does it have to do with me? Maybe what is business doing? What is my individual nation doing about sustainability? And where is my piece within all of that? So that's point number one. Point number two, after you get yourself educated, is to, I'm not going to go through all 5 points, but is to really think about what it is you can contribute. So, what your passion point is. And I always tell people, and I didn't make this up, somebody else did, but you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. So,
Hmm.
you need to pick what it is that you want to do, what your passion point is, what you have a specialty in, and focus on that, comfortable in the knowledge that there are millions, if not billions, of other people that are also going to do things that are they're passionate about. So to focus. The third big part, I think, is to really become a pragmatic, what I call a pragmatic altruist. So wear your heart on your sleeve, care, do the right thing, be altruistic, but do so strategically and pragmatically. I think there's a lot of people who they are doing the right thing and they're very passionate about the things they're doing, but maybe they're not having as much impact as they think they are. And I think if they looked at things a bit more strategically, they could do even better, more positive work. So that's just a little sample of some of the 5 points.
Mhm. Great. These are intriguing, really intriguing. And also, in your latest book, The Great Greenwashing, you shed light on misleading sustainability practices. So, what motivated you to delve into this topic, and what are some of the most common forms of greenwashing that consumers and businesses should be aware of?
Absolutely. This book just came out, so it was just launched in North America just a few weeks ago, but it's been out in Australia for about a year. So I found that there was really nothing on the market, at least in books, that talked about greenwashing that wasn't sort of a textbook. No one's going to read a textbook in their free time unless they absolutely have to for school. So I thought, okay, well, John, you have this knowledge. Time to write another book. And so, what I had been noticing, as well as a lot of my sustainability colleagues, were noticing that as we've come out the other end of the pandemic, there's been a massive uptick in greenwashing, which is essentially when corporations kind of wrap themselves in the language of being green or sustainable, but probably aren't as green or sustainable as they may lead on. And they're doing that because they want to make more money. They want us to buy their products. So essentially, when it's all boiled down, they're lying to us. So there was a massive uptick in that happening. So I thought, okay, let's do a bit of a guidebook for people to let everybody know what greenwashing is, what it looks like, how it manifests. And there's some big ways that we see it happening. A lot of people will already know some of the ones we see at the grocery store, like the green package,
Yeah.
like that's supposed to mean anything, or the scientific jargon that's on the back of a pack that is super confusing and doesn't mean anything, or something that's two times better from the planet, but they don't really qualify what in the world they're talking about. So all of this marketing speak is happening, but it gets a lot more insidious from there. It's a lot of misdirection, big companies funding campaigns or organizations that lobby politicians. So it
Mm.
gets quite bad. And as I was doing research for the book, I realized, oh gosh, it's not just corporations. I thought that would be it and I would be done. But it's also governments are doing it, international organizations are doing it, sports organizations love to do it. But also, our favorite celebrities are doing it. Influencers on social media are doing it. Everybody's doing it. So the book got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think what I ended up with was a pretty good cross section of all the different types of greenwashing that could potentially happen and ways that the reader can do something to make sure they don't fall victim to it.
Yeah. And now let's take a step forward and share with us how can these consumers and businesses identify and combat greenwashing effectively, particularly when faced with misleading claims from brands. You mentioned that the content that is written on the back of the bag is so confusing, right? That is one aspect. And apart from that, governments and influencers are also misleading, right?
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing, and this is going to sound weird coming out of my mouth, but it's totally true, is trust your gut. Because a lot of these things, a lot of the marketing teams that puts this stuff together, they're not so smart. Some are really smart, but most are not so smart. Like you look at this stuff and you go, why would they ever think someone would fall for this? And so if you're getting a funny feeling when you pick up a pack, there's probably a reason for that. So trust your gut. That's point number one. Point number two is, and it's an unfortunate reality of the time we live, but you need to do a bit of research. And I know nobody wants to hear that. I don't want to do research when I need to go to the store, but it's the reality. So do a bit of research if you want and find those companies and brands that are doing the right thing. There's plenty of them out there. It's not like all companies are bad. There's plenty of
Yeah.
companies too. And another unfortunate reality is you're probably going to have to spend just a little more. And if you have the luxury of doing that, I know not everybody does, that's sort of a reality as well. But with all of that said, if for whatever reason you go to the store and maybe you can't afford the right thing, that's okay. I want everybody to remember that there is no such thing as a perfect environmentalist. You don't need to do it all. So if you need to buy the thing that maybe is greenwashing because it's not as expensive, that's fine. Do something good in another part of your life to make up for it, and that's totally okay. It'll all come out in the wash.
Great perspective. And China is increasingly recognized as a global leader in sustainability efforts. So, from your experience, what lessons can the rest of the world learn from China's approach to sustainability, and how can we distinguish genuine progress from greenwashing in this context?
China's an interesting case study. So I did live and work in China for 10 years, so a little bit of knowledge there. And I was there during the time where the government really put an emphasis
Mm-hmm.
on greening the economy and greening their path forward. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Not all of them are because the government cared about the planet. Some are, but there's political reasons, of course, as well, and that's fine. But because of the way the government is set up in China, it's a command and control economy. All they have to do is say, do this, and it happens, which is amazing when it's the right thing. And it was the right thing. So we saw massive investments in green technology and innovation. We're talking on the order of more than the entire EU combined. There was a big uptick in terms of individual people understanding what issues mattered because in China, as well as in a lot of the developing world, the going back to my point earlier about having to get our hands dirty over here is we see the impact and we see the things happening day in and day out. We taste the pollution. We eat the food that maybe has something wrong with it, or we drink the polluted water. So we know these things are happening. So people became very educated very, very quickly, which is a great thing. And just to really, in terms of what the government in China was doing up through the pandemic, to really put an emphasis on this and how they take this to become and to work with green business or to green their business sector, to shut down a lot of these smaller mom and pop operations that probably didn't follow regulation, or a lot of the really polluting large corporations that were sort of factories. A lot of the work that was done in that is just amazing. And of course, most governments and countries around the world can't do that because China can do everything at scale. That's one of their luxuries. But there's certainly lessons that a lot of countries can learn on how a government can work proactively to embrace sustainability, but also, I was going to say profit from it, but that's the wrong way to phrase it. But to really to benefit from it
Mhm.
in so many more ways than just doing good for the planet.
Yeah, great. All right, so this has been fabulous conversation so far. And John, it's time for us to add some more excitement and some more spice to the episode. So if you're ready, let's get into the second rapid fire round with a set of intriguing questions.
Let's see how I am.
Let's dive in. And here comes the first bullet. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Ooh, I said it already. There's no such thing as a perfect environmentalist.
There is no such thing as a perfect environmentalist. Wow. And if you could swap lives with any animal for a day to experience their environmental perspective, which animal would you choose and why?
I reckon I would go with an otter, just so I could see what life is like in the sea, but not have to live under the sea.
Good one. And can you describe yourself in just one word?
Pragmatic.
Pragmatic. And if sustainability had a mascot, what animal or symbol do you think would best represent it?
Gosh, we have so many, right? But I think we see the polar bear on the melting ice cap, which is a sad mascot. We don't want that one. But we also have the panda bear. I think the panda bear is a good one. They're silly animals, but it's sort of become the face of the movement, which I think is great. They picked a good one.
Yeah, good one. And if you could rewrite a famous movie title to reflect a sustainability theme, what would be the new title?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So there was the movie of last year, a few years ago, called "Don't Look Up" with Leonardo DiCaprio. That was a climate change movie, but I would probably change the title to "Pay Attention."
Good one. And here comes the last one. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you would like to see or invent yourself?
I'm obviously not Elon Musk, which is why this is not coming to me. I'm sure he would have a million answers. I think it would be something to, and maybe this exists, and I don't know, something that you could, since we're talking about greenwashing, maybe on your phone, scan an item, like scan the UPC, and it tells you, it gives you a grade of how good the product is for the world. I'm sure that exists. I'm sure it does.
Yeah, we may have to do further research on that, but yeah, good one. And let's flip back to the mainstream. So, John, looking ahead, what are the key areas or industries where you believe urgent action is needed to drive meaningful progress towards global sustainability goals while addressing the issue of greenwashing effectively?
I think we all kind of know which industries that probably fits into that question. But when I was doing the research for the book, I found that when it comes to different industry sectors, we sort of assume there's hundreds of industry sectors, but really there's not. There's like 20, all boiled down. And within those 20, there's a handful that are much further along when it comes to sustainability, and they tend not to greenwash as much because they come from highly regulated industries. So medtech, healthcare, finance, they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They certainly have their problems, but they tend to be better. On
Mm,
the other end of the spectrum are the ones we know are the really bad, what I call the unsustainable companies, the ones that no matter what they do, unless they shut their doors or entirely change their business model, there's no way they can be sustainable. So that's oil and gas, tobacco, defense, and mining. Those are the bad ones, right? And so I would answer your question by saying that it should be them that are doing the most work, but we know that they really probably aren't going to, at least not in the near future. So that's why I think we should be spending our time focused on improving all the other, whatever, 15 ish segments and industries that are sitting in the middle. I think the biggest one, this is a long way to answer your short question, but I think the one we should really look at is fashion. I think
mm,
fashion is sitting on the cusp right now of going towards being an unsustainable industry, or we could pull it back and make it quite good. So that includes
yeah.
not just fast fashion, but a lot of the bigger fashion houses as well. So the gamut. And there's a lot of reasons for that, particularly because fashion touches so many different other segments. It has such a large value chain around the world. It impacts so many people, especially people in the developing world who tend to work in the factories. So there's not only a lot of work that needs to be done, but if that work is done, there is so much positive impact that could potentially happen. So,
Yeah.
fashion.
Wonderful. I loved every bit of this conversation and thoroughly enjoyed your insights. And how is your experience being hosted on The Guiding Voice?
I love the little brain ticklers. That was so much fun. So, thank you.
Thank you once again. And John, really appreciate you taking time to join this conversation and looking forward to many more conversations in future. And I wish you all the best in everything that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So it was pleasure hosting John Pabon. And folks, before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. In case if you haven't already subscribed to TGV, the Guiding Voice podcast, please subscribe from wherever you have tuned in, because subscribing keeps you updated on new episodes and you will learn a lot of stuff. And if you have enjoyed the conversation, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who would also like TGV, the Guiding Voice. So spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you. Now let's cruise into the trivia segment. Having had amazing conversation about greenwashing and sustainability with John Pabon, I'm here presenting you few more facts, lesser known facts about sustainability. And the term sustainability originated from the forestry industry in Europe in the 17th century, where it referred to the practice of ensuring that forests were managed in a way that allowed for continual harvesting without depleting resources. And second is about Brundtland report. The modern concept of sustainability was popularized by the 1987 report titled Our Common Future by the United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development, chaired by Gro Harlem Brundtland. This report defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And third is about triple bottom line. Sustainability is often associated with the triple bottom line concept, which emphasizes economic prosperity, environmental stewardship, and social equity as interconnected pillars of sustainable development. So that is all I wanted to share with you on the sustainability. But if you have any other interesting facts related to sustainability, or if you came across any other country or an organization which is doing very well in the space, please let me know in the form of comments. If you're watching it on YouTube, or if you have found this episode on audio platforms, you can comment on social media from where you have found the episode link. So folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. We would love to hear from you. So do not hesitate to share your ideas, feedback, topic recommendations, and guest speaker suggestions either through social media, or you can also email us at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. 4 as in digit and you as letter. And I'm your host, Naveen Samala, a lifelong learner. And my goal is to have impactful conversations that improve not only your life, but also your career. So until next time, take care, stay inspired. And remember, the future holds great things because the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you on the next episode with another amazing guest.